Okay, so this works a lot like your toxin project, except it's actually a little easier. The expectation is going to be a little bit longer, but it's a little bit easier in terms of the content of it. You're not going to have to come up with an opinion. You're not going to have to look up societal effects of something. Okay, this is a strict report. You're telling me about a plant you choose. Okay, plant of your choice. There's lots of interesting plants out there. Okay, and you're basically telling me how it grows, how it transports stuff. Basically, how does it do all the things we've talked about in class? How does it exhibit specialization? Okay, and how is it adapted to its environment? Okay, how is its structure so that it can do well wherever it is it grows? Okay, because every plant is adapted to its environment. A saguaro cactus is definitely adapted to living in dry conditions, but would do really poorly here. Okay, because it would freeze. Or if we were looking at, like a spruce tree, a Douglas fir from the mountains. Okay, if we took that down and put it in Brazil, it would die. Okay, like they're just, how is everything adapted to its particular place? Okay, so in this project, you're going to examine the growth patterns and adaptations of plant of your choice, include a description of the plant's native environment. Okay, tell me where does it normally grow and the conditions it has to deal with in that environment, and give me a detailed description of how your plant grows, adapts, and deals with these conditions. Okay, look at any tropisms that it may employ, if it does, if it maybe is something that crawls up the side of buildings or things like that. Okay, any special adaptations it has to prevent it from being eaten, so that'd be like thorns on a cactus, or maybe it's poisonous or something. Okay, damaged or just plain survive in its environment. Okay, those should be described as well. Okay, so you need to report on the structure of your plant. Is it a flowering plant? So does it make flowers and thus fruit? Okay, is it a conifer? So it reproduces using cones, okay, and generally has needles for leaves. Is it a moss, etc.? Okay, what are its specific needs in terms of light, water, soil, nutrients? So that's kind of the conditions of its environment again. Okay, use your knowledge of plant structure, growth, and development to illustrate how your plant species is unique and how it is adaptive. Okay, in terms of its growth, talk about its life cycle. Okay, be specific. Talk about how long it would take for it to become mature. If you're talking about a tomato plant, that's a few months. If you're talking about a giant redwood, it's many, many years. Okay, depends what you pick. So describe how it grows as a sapling or a sprout, what age it could be considered mature. Is your plant annual? That means it grows for 1 year and dies. Okay, perennial, comes back every year. Evergreen, doesn't lose its leaves. Deciduous, loses its leaves. Okay, and how this affects its growth and development. All right, talk about the environmental influences. So we talked about that already. The plant's environmental conditions. Are there parasitic organisms that it has to fight? Okay, how does it compete with other organisms in its environment? Okay, visual aids. Your project has to contain pictures and or diagrams. Graphs or charts of growth studies of your plant are great if you can find them. If you someone like managed to post like a time lapse of your plant growing, that'd be cool. Okay, see what kinds of things you can find. Okay, questions on what you're going to be expected to write. Okay, citing your references. This was an area that did not go well on the toxin project in 2 ways. First off, people didn't cite properly, and secondly, I had a lot of plagiarism. All right, I want you to make note of this. There is a plagiarism checker. I will be using it. If it tells me more than 10% of your project is copied, that's it. That's plagiarism. That's where I draw the line. I accepted some as high as 25 last time, okay, but I'm not going to do that. I talked to the English department. They said even if you take somebody's idea, that's plagiarism. Like literally, it could be less than 5% of your project that they would consider it plagiarized. So I'm being really nice because I'm a science guy and I don't understand this stuff as well as they do. Okay, so you can use the plagiarism checker as well, but you know if you're copying somebody's stuff, don't do it. Okay, if it comes up at more than 10% when I check it, then you get a 0. Okay, do your own writing. Okay, you can read stuff from other people's websites, but it's got to be in your own words, and that doesn't mean you change 2 words in the sentence. The plagiarism checker will catch that. Okay, you got to put it in your own words. Okay, remember when you're citing your references that this is the format I am looking for. Okay, whoops, sorry, that's for a magazine. Okay, from an online source, author's name, Gotta find it. Okay? Date it was published. Name of the article, name of the website, the URL, and the day you accessed it. I need all of that information. Do not post a URL, or 5 of them, for your project, for your research. I will give you 0 on your research. That's the format. That's what I need to see. Okay, I was more forgiving on the toxin project. I will be less forgiving this time. That is the way it needs to look. Okay, make sure yours looks that way. Everybody clear on that? Okay. All right, planning. Make sure you do your planning. Same as in the toxin project. All you have to do is have a timeline, because we just talked about planning when you're going to work on things. Timeline. When are you going to work on it? When do you work on it? What do you do? And either an outline or thought web, whichever one works better for you for like organizing your ideas. If you want to write, slide 1, I'm going to talk about this, slide 2, I'm going to talk about this, that's fine. If you're more about, I want the idea in the middle and bubbles coming out of it, that's fine too, whichever way works for you. Timeline and one of those 2. Okay, that's 5 marks, 5 easy marks. Okay. All right, so scope of the project between 1,200 and 1,600 words, that's 1.5 to 2 pages in the Google Docs, default single space, 12-point font, 1-inch margins, okay, about like that. Remember the Google Slides will not do a word count, okay, you have to copy it into Google Docs to get the word count. So same 5 areas that you were marked on in your toxin project: your planning, your analysis, your communication, your research, and overall. So 5 marks for those things we talked about for planning, timeline, and thought web or outline. Okay, this is what you tell me about the plant. Communication is how well you put your ideas together. Okay, does it flow, right? Things like that. Can I read it and it sounds like 15, 16-year-old wrote it? Research and investigation, making sure everything is in this format. Right? And overall is just, when I read it, does it make sense? Is it full of spelling mistakes? Does it look like it's bleeding because the spell checker's freaking out? Okay, does it have pictures that are appropriate for what you're talking about? Things like that. Okay, this is not due until April 26th. Okay, so you have lots of time to write 1.5 to 2 pages of stuff about a plant. Okay. So there's no rush on this one. Okay? Obviously you got other things coming up due that are probably a bigger priority. Doesn't mean you can't plan, but you're going to work a few minutes here or there on this thing over the next few weeks. Okay? You have today's class and tomorrow's class. All of tomorrow's class to work on this. Yes?
Would underwater plants be acceptable?
They will not. Will have to be a terrestrial plant simply because underwater plants don't do any of the things we've talked about. None of the transport, they don't have a xylem and a phloem, so it would be hard to talk about that. Good question. Okay. Anything else? All right.